Welcome to another match preview where we look ahead to our latest cup game, our second of 4 Western away games on the spin. It's the FA Trophy and our hosts are Horsham. Well, we promised you some new old faces and voices previously, and for the first time this season we have had a change in our lineup. I'm delighted to say that Joe Parkhouse is with me today for today's preview. It's great to have you with us.
Yeah, it's great to be back, Sean. Thank you for having me on.
Not at all. So a couple of games in the last week then, finishing with that 1-1 draw at Torquay in midweek. But before then, the Stones continued their winning home form against Hornchurch, Joe.
Yeah, by all accounts, quite an impressive performance in terms of chance creation. A little bit tetchy towards the end, but of course, you know, what more can you expect from the Stones this season? I think we performed quite well generally in games, especially when it comes to creating chances. But it's just that cutting edge, isn't it, that we've lacked at times. But I think overall we had a pretty good performance against Hornchurch.
Yeah, we did. And like you say, it's the key to Maidstone's season, frankly, not scoring enough goals. You know, we've got one of the best defences but one of the worst attacks. And it's one of those things going forward that whether there's players in the transfer market that the club are looking at, whether there's certain ways the play happens, you know, the team are going to be looking at this, aren't they, to try and get a resolution to those issues.
Yeah, exactly. You'd think there'd be some form of perhaps bolstering the squad, you know, looking at maybe bringing people in, a potential to try and change things up a little bit, maybe put a few people's spots into question, create a bit more competition in terms of the first team, and maybe a little bit more impact off the bench.
Definitely. So a quick look back now at the Torquay midweek game, Joe. It was another mostly impressive performance, save for one or two lapses of concentration, but the Stones extend their unbeaten league run to 8 now since the C word.
Yeah, well, obviously Maidstone, you know, haven't really excelled this season. That's therefore why they are in the league position that they're in. However, Torquay currently in the playoff spots, having a pretty good season by all accounts. And like you say, you know, we spent a lot of the game on top, you know, in a very good position. And unfortunately, it was just that one mistake kind of near the end, a slip, which has kind of caused that goal to go in and Maidstone to drop points. And unfortunately, you know, when you're in the position we're in, you can't throw away 3 points like that. Yeah. And, you know, we've had the gaffer kind of come out and say what's happened and, you know, the account that the players have given and stuff as to why that happened. You know, we saw a lot of Ika slipping when he came on.
There was a few during the game.
Yeah, you know,
there?
It's not just the one or two. It's, you know, a good handful of players. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think we just need to learn from the mistakes of that game and try and just stay on the front foot when we're on top, rather than just kind of giving a bit too much respect to a team in a slightly better position that we find ourselves in.
Exactly. So in goal for Horsham, Bradley House is in his second spell with the Hornets, having made a dozen appearances for the club on loan from Sutton United during the COVID abandoned campaign of 2020-21. He signed again last month and picked up a red card on his latest debut in a 2-0 defeat of Chichester City. Alfie Lelliot is a young goalkeeper who has come up through the club's youth ranks and been in and around the matchday squad for the past couple of years. He's currently playing for Rustington in the Southern Combination League. And Lewis Carey, he's in his second season at the club, having joined from rivals Lewis in the summer of 2023. He produced that man of the match performance in the 3-3 draw at Barnsley in last season's FA Cup run. So Joe, Carey the number one, and from some of his recent cup appearances you can see why. Yeah,
well, looking at Carey's, you know, career up to this point, he's had a pretty successful one, like you say. You know, he's had man of the match performances at previous clubs. He's won Player of the Year awards as well. So he is someone who is more than capable of putting in a good, consistent performance. He's now got to that age as well. In his early 30s, goalkeepers start to enter their prime position, their prime time, and you know, considering the output of our strikers of late, you know, if he's performing well, he might have quite a comfortable game, but it's up to us to put that test on him, isn't it?
So in defence, Harvey Sparks signed from Bognor Regis Town in September 2018. He's their longest serving player in the current squad. He began the season with 246 appearances to his name. Jack Strange signed from Kingstonian midway through the 22-23 season. Isaac Philpott had 7 years at Dorking before a permanent move to the Hornets in the summer. And Jake Elliott joined in the summer. He has experience of National League South level with Eastbourne Borough a couple of seasons ago. So, Joe, a compact number of defenders here, but like ourselves, third or fourth best defensive record in the division, but still find themselves in the bottom half of the table.
Yeah, there's an interesting parallel, isn't it? Obviously, looking at their goal scoring records, like you say, it's not great at the moment, similar to ours. Their defensive record, very good at the moment, but their league position also kind of reflects ours. They're in that kind of bottom half, slowly trying to work their way back up, get some consistency, but it's not quite working for them at the moment. So we've just got to make sure that, we're trying to take advantage of the smaller numbers they've got. Obviously, they've got quite a bit of experience at the back, but again, we've also got that as well in our attack. Yeah. So you'd like to think that we'd be able to take advantage of potentially a weaker side on paper.
On paper, but as we say, it's never
you
played
never
on
know
paper.
in the cup. No, you never know.
Exactly. In midfield, that consists of Lee Harding. He signed from Burgess Hill Town over 6 years ago. He's regularly filled in at full-back over the last couple of seasons. Hence, not as many registered defenders, but a few who can fill in when needed. Jack Brivio is another 6-year stalwart. He's the club captain. He also has covered at centre-back when needed. Lucas Rodriguez and his Brazilian flair signed from Whitehawk for a club record fee in 2021. He got the final assist in that 3-3 Barnsley FA Cup game last season. Charlie Hester-Cook joined from Dorking in 2021. He's now in his 4th season, but injuries have stifled his appearances somewhat in the last couple of years. James Hammond joined from Eastbourne Borough last summer, and 6 of his last season's tally of 15 goals came from set pieces. Danny Barker made over 150 appearances for Worthing before signing for the Hornets last season. Rhys Meekums, he was on dual registration with Worthing last season before the signing was made permanent at the start of this season. Joel Daly signed from Whitehawk in the summer and previously had a 4-year stint with Ohio-based university side Tiffin Dragons. As you do. Montel Aguimang suffered a broken leg while with Margate at the start of last season. He signed for Horsham in the summer. So Joe, there's a lot of loyal and flexible players in that Hornets midfield there. Yeah,
so that flexibility is obviously, for me, somewhere we need to try and focus on. We want to make sure that we're trying our best to get on top of any potential lineup they might put out. As you say, limited numbers at the back, but players who can fill in there. Yeah. You've got to try and figure out, based off their season up to now, obviously the intensity of the game, who they're going to be playing where, have we got the suitable counters for those people in those positions, and also you mentioned the set pieces. Set pieces is somewhere where Maidstone have faltered significantly in recent years and continue to do so at the moment. But that's not to say that we're going to do anything in particular in this coming game. We've just got to make sure that we're keeping on top of the players who are stronger in those positions.
So up front, Shamir Fenelon boasts Football League experience with Torquay, Rochdale, Tranmere, the Daggers. He's played against the Stones twice in the 17-18 season in a pair of 1-1 draws with Aldershot. Daniel Ajakai signed from Kingstonian over 2 years ago now. He's come up with a goal every 2.5 games in his first 2 seasons with Horsham. Ola Ogunwamide signed from rivals Lewis in the summer. And Chris Dixon has had a glittering career, which includes Football League appearances for Charlton, Gillingham, Bristol Rovers, the aforementioned Daggers once more. He lifted the Cypriot First Division title with AEL Limassol, scoring against Marseille in the Europa League, a brief spell in the Chinese Super League, assisting 2 goals to help Hornchurch win the FA Trophy at Wembley in 2021, and scoring in the penalty shootout for Chatham Town in last season's playoff semi-final defeat of the Hornets. And his most recent match was, of course, against his old club Chatham on Tuesday night for Horsham. Got a lot there for Chris Dixon, wasn't it? So, Joe, plenty of experience up front, as I've just alluded to. That could still be playing at a high level, frankly.
Yeah, exactly that. And for the level that Horsham find themselves at, they have got a very good wealth of experience in their team. A lot of players who have played at a higher level, got a lot of experience as well, and could potentially still be doing that even today. So we definitely need to be careful. We need to make sure that we're not taking their lack of goals this season for granted. We need to make sure that we're still kind of firm at the back and trying to make sure that we do pay a little bit more respect than perhaps it might first appear to Horsham, because obviously they do have that potential to score goals.
So Horsham's last 8 in the league have seen 2 wins, 2 draws and now 4 defeats, but 4 wins from 5 at home in the league this season. And they have already knocked Leiston out on penalties and a 2-0 win at Canvey Island to reach this stage of the FA Trophy. And of course, they also lost 3-1 at Chesterfield in round 1 of the FA Cup. So they are in decent form in all competitions heading into their trophy clash with the Stones. Joe?
Yeah, for their current league position, you might assume that their form is worse than it actually is. They are in pretty good form coming into this game, and of course Maidstone need to make sure that we're paying a great consideration to that home form in the league.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen it here at the Gallagher in recent years that we've attempted to make here a fortress. You know, that's very important for teams, and obviously they're going to understand with a higher league team coming to them at their own home, they're going to have to try and perform better. And you know, I think coming into the game, they're going to be very considerate of that. They're going to know that they could perform better in recent weeks, but they're also not doing too bad. And there is a fine line, especially in the cup games, like you mentioned, with potentially going to penalties. Whether Maidstone can get there or not, or will need to get there or not, we shall see. But if we do get there, 8 out of 11 wins in the last penalty shootouts for Maidstone. So you'd like to think we'd have a slightly upper hand in that one if it did come to it.
So 10 encounters in the last 2 decades or so, no contest since 2013. Horsham lead the overall record 4-2 in that period, with all 4 draws being 1 apiece. So if that's the score come the end of 90 minutes, Joe, as you've already mentioned, could come down to that lottery that the Stones do have a slight advantage in.
Yeah, I think looking at Maidstone's results, especially in the league this season, we're partial to a draw. So it may well be something that we come across, and a 1-1 is definitely a very common result for us in recent months. So yeah, if it does come down to it, like we said, you know, we should have a little bit more of an advantage going into it, but it's all down to the day, isn't it?
It is, and hoping they can get it done ideally before the dreaded penalties.
Let's hope so.
So there's 26 places between the two sides at the time of recording. Their previous best run for Horsham was in last season's competition, where they reached the 4th round. That was the only time in their history that they'd made it past round 2. The Stones, of course, have made the quarterfinals 4 times so far in their history, and would hope to possibly make it 5 this season without the FA Cup now, Joe.
Yeah, well, Maidstone have got a pretty good cup record in recent years. Obviously, looking at the Kent Senior Cup, Kent Senior Trophy, we've performed pretty well in that in recent years. The FA Cup we've actually done pretty well in, as everyone will know.
A little bit, yeah.
But yeah, the trophy is somewhere where we've not been the most successful. But obviously now we're out of the other 2. The other 2 aren't in focus. It's something we may be able to excel in this season.
Yeah. So if you can't make it to the game on Saturday, Fred and Nigel, God willing, will have you covered on Stones Live from 2:40. You'll see them on the hot take and then hear them on the highlights once they go online later in the weekend. So last competition standing, last cup match of the season. Let's hoping Elacobi's cup record continues to grow this weekend, and Di Paolo at Horsham, he has a similar stature there with the cup records as we've discussed. So an intriguing battle awaits between them two, as well as those other areas that we've discussed here. So our thanks as always to you for watching or listening to the latest preview. Like and subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. See or hear you for our next preview ahead of the Bath away league game. And as always, come on you Stones.